do you even agree with me that this arc is about identity? I never asked.
I like the idea, yeah. I think, well, I'll get into
Okay.
it later. Yeah, it is about identity, but I'm not going to say it's about more than identity, but they develop the theme of identity in more than one way. As we've seen through, like, Shikamaru, for
Or
example. He has two different ways of going about it.
it's something very prevalent in this arc that I've noticed, but it's not when I use those examples. Like the Land of Waves arc is begging the question,
Yeah.
what does it mean to be a ninja? This arc so far isn't begging a question or an idea about identity. I just can see there's something about identity clearly important in this arc, but the arc isn't begging any sort of question for me to ask.
Yeah.
That's where it's a problem.
The
But
bridge
yeah,
was the
I don't know what else it would
conflict.
be.
It was the conduit that led to the story. It was the plot. Naruto
Exactly.
versus Zabuza is the plot. That's not the story. It's just the way to get
Yeah.
to the story, and arguably the best way they could have. But when you
It's
say,
like
when people talk about how the Land of Waves is peak or good, no one's talking about the actual bridge mission itself. That's not the peak part of the arc, obviously. That's where the arc, that's the background, if anything. So coming to Two Blue Vortex, they just haven't asked the question. They are only giving us the bridge fight without actually the story. Why no
exactly.
peakness
And it's
there?
like I said, like the story isn't Zabuza wanting to kill Tazuna while Naruto wants to protect Tazuna. That's just the reason Zabuza and Naruto are talking in the first place, where they're then expressing their ideas. And then that's where the story comes in.
Yeah.
The
You
reason Naruto is arguing with Zabuza about what it means to be a ninja is because they came across each other because of this mission with Tazuna. But that's it.
Another example, just to get the point across, you aren't gonna understand this, but I just watched Vinland Saga season 2. Without spoilers in season 2, the War of the Farm isn't the story. If you take all the context surrounding the importance of that out, that war is no better, in fact, probably worse than all of the random conflicts, wars, whatever, from season 1 that don't have to do with anything, of them just pillaging villages randomly in one off episodes. Of which, so even those have stories, but the story isn't the village being pillaged. That kind of rhymes. And
Yeah,
Kamui, I
I
know
mean,
you
like we could do
also
this with
mentioned one for like Konoha Crush and tuning exams if you wanted to do that.
yeah, well, you could do this with literally every single
Yeah,
story.
yeah, I
Like,
know.
yeah, I use the tuning exams to Not Crush. Because the reason I chose those is because they were very simple,
Yeah.
easy for everyone to be like, oh yeah, you're right. And it's also like one main thing versus one of four main things or something. It's more just like that's the one. But
Yeah.
yeah.
But for this arc, you have to tie everything back into one central idea. And so, because you have so many different tangents, it feels like in this arc, with omnipotence and just Boruto versus Kawaki, and then the Shinjuu invasion. What's the central idea? What's the meaning? What are they trying to say? The only
But
thing that
that's
even
where
broadly, loosely connects it is the idea of identity, but not one idea, just the broad idea of it generally.
yeah, like the best, most narrow thing I can think of for what I'm seeing is the forging of your identity, but or like the writing of your own story. I'm not gonna word it. Even that, I'm not gonna say it's like the picture perfect one, but like if I had, that's as narrow as I can get.
And
I don't know what else, but even then,
so this isn't a
the
bad
problem
thing
is,
because this isn't the themes. This is the subject matter. The subject matter is what we're talking about. The themes is what well, I don't want to say what we're saying because that sounds like what we're talking about. It's the subject versus the conclusion, the question versus the answer in a way.
yeah,
And so a broad
and so
topic is fine. It's about what you do with that topic that matters.
Exactly. So, like, for example, a broad topic called a heart crush, true strength. The question, what is true strength? The answers provided, protecting what you love, or fighting for yourself, or the number of truths you possess, and so on. So, in this case, it's like, what is the question? I mean, we can come up with a question. For example, how does one find their identity? There's a question. I came up with it. But is the story begging that question? Are characters presenting that question? So far, no, they're not. So, but that's the problem. The characters need to present the question to us. It doesn't have to be super direct. It doesn't have to be Naruto saying, "Hey, Gara, what is true strength?" But we know the question because the characters are arguing. They don't have to be in a literal bickering argument, but they're at least symbolically arguing about what true strength is.
So
They actually are literally arguing about it too, but
we'll get to this later. The closest thing I have to this, and I'll explain this in way more detail later, but I think you're gonna like this. The question
okay.
has to do with what Jura and Kurama both ask.
Okay. Like the mysteries about the world.
Yeah.
Okay. But that didn't really ask a question. That
I
was more of a
know
statement. This
it's
world is full of mysteries.
well, it's I mean, to be fair, people like Hidari are just asking a lot of questions. Like Jura's still asking questions
You know what?
about the world.
That's the question. What are
what
we?
are the questions?
Hidari asked the question of the arc. What exactly are we? Everyone gives an answer. But even then, I feel like we're jumping around now because this was probably what the topic was originally going to be. That's going to become the finale. But you need to have the characters, particularly the protagonist and antagonist, presenting conflicting answers to that question. Or if there's no question, then they're just presenting conflicting ideas, of which we can then ask the question based off those ideas.
That's so funny that you say that because Kurama was intended to be the finale one, and I wrote him as, and then Konohamaru, Matsuri, and Bug are like a bonus 3 after the fact after party. One more comparison I want to make, it's not necessarily adding, but just to make the point, is again, like with the Code arc, that's like the love arc. Love is so broad, but again, that doesn't make it bad. It's like one of the main themes covered in any story, really. And so covering love in an arc that as a subject matter, that's good. But the themes of the arc, what they do with love is interesting. They do different things. They have romantic love through Code and Ada. They have, or really Ada through many characters as well. They have familial love. There's a term for the filial love. I think it might be filial.
Familial.
Well, okay, familial. Okay, you know, I'll just go with familial. Yes, familial love between like Boruto. No, sorry. Well, I guess Boruto and Naruto, but yeah, but like Kawaki and Naruto. Yeah, and then they have. I think it's filial is what it's called.
Naruto and Boruto, Kawaki and Boruto, but
so filial love is love of a child for a parent. Yeah, okay, so it is filial love. Okay. That I was thinking of. So it's familial and filial. There's a third type of
I just said familial because I'm like, well, I know that was true.
3 types of love: Philos, Eros, and Agape. Well, one of them is romantic, so the third one is okay. We'll just go with the one between brothers. So Boruto and Kawaki is also presented in that arc. So there you go. With this execution. Yeah.